Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be going over chapter 21 on hollow verbs, page 226. If you don't have your book, I'd recommend pausing the video to grab that. So hollow verbs are verbs which have yod or vav as the middle consonant. We've seen these words quite a bit throughout the chapter. We have sim, mut, bo, and shuv as our four examples. We've seen these words quite a bit, and as we've probably noticed when looking at the biblical text, it's sometimes difficult to identify the three consonant root for any given word. So many prefixes and suffixes, they just kind of, and things dropping off, it can just kind of get complicated. So we're going to go over these verbs in order to better recognize them in the biblical text so we can parse them, so we can understand how to translate them. So that's why we're going to go over them. We're starting with the perfect tense. That's going to be on page 52 if you need to pause the video and recap on that. So the perfect tense, a hollow verb will drop the middle consonant. So, and it's also going to have some vowel changes. So sim becomes sam in the third masculine singular, and samu in the third masculine or feminine plural. The vowel is either going to be a patak or a comment, as the middle consonant is dropped. It needs to have an elongation, so it takes those vowels. There are some irregulars, just like in every other Hebrew grammar rule ever. So if you look on the bottom of page 227, you'll see the chart for mut. You'll see mate, meta, metu. It's going to be a sere, a different vowel. It's Hebrew. We're used to it. The perfect is going to be translated in the past tense. Pretty straightforward. He died, she died, they died. Perfect. So next we're going to go to participles, page 181. If you need to pause the video to recap on participles, feel free to do so. Um, and participles, there's also, just like the perfect, the middle consonant is going to be dropped. And just like with regular participle verbs, the regular plural endings apply. So you're not going to have to learn an entirely new conjugation for this. However, given that there is an active and passive participle, there are different conjugations. The passive participle is going to be so rare, though, that it's not even in our book. If you look on page 228, you'll see only one form of conjugation. That's the active participle. The passive is so esoteric that it didn't even feel necessary to include it. I had to dig through my See Out grammar book to find it. But I thought I'd add it just so that you guys could have it if you would like. So, active participle, seem becomes sam in the masculine singular. In the feminine plural, it becomes samot. And so the active, how to translate that is, the noun is setting. It's the active. The passive, it's seem is seem for masculine singular, and seem is then, and in the passive it is seemote for the feminine plural, and the noun is set. So it's just different translations, but most likely you won't see it. So you've probably also noticed that participles and perfect conjugations for hollow verbs look the same in the masculine and feminine singular. So there is a way to tell the difference when you're reading in a biblical text, but that's going to be in a footnote on page 401, footnote 41. There's going to be an accent for the perfect. So the perfect of seem is going to be sama, right? So we emphasize the first syllable. In the participle, it's sama. We emphasize the second syllable. So look for those accent marks when you're reading text if you find you need to tell the difference between a participle and a perfect. Next is the imperfect, reviewed on page 95. The medical radical stays in this case, so it's quite a bit different. So bo becomes yavo, excuse me, there's no dagesh, yavo, in the third masculine singular. And in the third feminine plural, or the second masculine plural, it is going to be tivo ena, and then in the third masculine plural, it's going to be yavou. And as you can see here, the vowels are going to be different than regular verbs. So the prefix is going to take either a patak or a shava, rather than, you'll usually see a hirik or something. But also note that on the verb chart for the conjugations on page 228, in some forms a middle consonant is absorbed into the first consonant as a vowel. So you'll see either the u or the o. So there will be times in the imperfect where it looks like it's dropping the middle consonant, but really it's being absorbed. And this is going to be translated as the future tense. This will happen. So for the example of bow in the third feminine plural, they will enter. Next is the command form or the imperative on page 196. The middle radical is, or excuse me, middle consonant is also kept. Bow is in the masculine singular is just bow, and the feminine plural it's going to be bona. So the vowels are the same as the imperfect. You just subtract the prefix. And these are created by subtracting the tav prefix on the imperfects. So look for those forms. That's and remember, command and imperative doesn't it doesn't agree with personhood. There's going to be gender and there's going to be singular or plural. So it doesn't have to have first, second, third. Those verbs that just doesn't apply to these verbs. It's the same with participles. Participles don't have personhood. So just remember that they're just in different forms. And next we come to the infinitive, which can be reviewed on page 211. Infinitives have absolutely no agreement. If you recall, these are the ones that just have one of those prefixes like the lamed, the the lamed, the bait, or the kaf. And it's going to have a patak vowel underneath that preposition prefix. And there's no agreement, and it retains the middle consonant. So a shuv becomes la shuv. Pretty straightforward. The vowels retain those from the roots. That's way different than the regular verbs. So in this case, hollow verbs are actually quite a bit easier. Celebrate. Next is going to be clipped forms. You can review these on page 169. These have to do with the reversing vav and the effect on tense. So if you remember correctly, a vav which has a patak underneath is going to switch the tense, whereas a vav that has a shava is just going to be a simple and. So just try to remember that. So for the clip forms, we're going to drop the middle consonant. So shuv becomes vayashav, right? So it's got some more syllables there as well, and that's the third masculine singular. The book only goes over clip forms in third masculine singular because that's the most common way it happens. I again dug into my CL grammar book to understand how the vowels change. So if it's a if it's a vav mit hollow verb, the vowel pattern right there is on the bottom. It's going to be vaya'a, and then so with shuv vayashav. If it's going to be a yod hollow verb, it's going to be vaya'e. So if we're using sin for this one, it'd be vayaseh. Excuse me, vayasem. So that's going to be how we just pronounce those. So with pronunciation, it really helps because if sometimes the vowel markers can be a little bit ambiguous, at least the pronunciation can be a little bit more straightforward. So I recommend working on pronunciation in order to help remember the sound that these different forms are going to take, because that's going to be if going to be a little bit easier if we can remember how they sound. So that is all we're going to do for hollow verbs. Next, we're going to go with the question hey, or the questioning hey, as I was taught. It's going to look like the direct object marker, which is the ha, right? But this is going to be a hey with a compound shava. So instead of ha, it's going to be ha, right? So just a different vowel sound. Don't elongate. It's going to be fast, ha. And these vowels with this vowel marker, you're not going to have a dagesh in the following letter, which means the dagesh is doubling, right? So we're not going to have something that it's going to sound different than if you just have ha, the direct object marker. And then if you're pairing this with negation, it's going to be hello, right? And that's just the rhetorical question, is it not? Easy way to remember this when you see it is, say you're doing something really good for someone and they're like, oh, you're an angel. And you say, hello? Like, my halo is showing, is it not? Yeah, I wish I was less proud of that, but there it is. And then there's going to be some variations. Page 401, footnote 43. If the questioning hey comes before a het, a hey, an ayin, or an aleph, it's going to look like the direct object marker, right? So with that one, we're just going to have to try to pay attention. I didn't see a way to tell those apart. That'd be a question for Dr. Cleef. And then in the same variation, if it's those same letters, if it's any of those four with a patak underneath, so ha, ah, then the questioning hey is going to be with a segel, so he, even faster. So that's what we went through this week. If you have any questions, feel free to email myself and Dr. Cleeth. It'd be great to copy us both, just because it might be a question of mine too. So that'd be great. All right, and hope you're having a wonderful day and that this did not ruin that. Excellent. See you all on Zoom.